morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for what promises to be a very insightful session on one of the most critical yet often underestimated aspect of our industry, B2B payments. When we think about travel industry, our minds often go first to customers, destination, experiences, and services. But behind every booking, as you know, behind every itinerary and every departures, stand a complex web of financial flows, payment, travel agents, suppliers, and partners across the globe. And those payments are just not transactions. They are the lifeblood of our trust, the liquidity, and the stability in our industry. And we know by experience that it is a very fragile ecosystem. Delays, inefficiencies, high costs, and even failures in the payment chain have the potential to disrupt businesses and create risk for everyone involved. For travel agents and tour operators, getting payments right means securing better cash flow, reducing exposure, and ensuring that customers' money is protected. But this is not a back office issue. This is a strategic challenge for the entire value chain, impacting airlines, cruise companies, technology providers, and ultimately the traveler. This is why today's conversation is so timely, and we have brought together three experts who live and breathe these challenges on opportunities every day. Roberto, founder of TravelAger, a pioneer in digital settlement solutions designed specifically for travel industry. Paul Nunn, Chief Operating Officer at Advantage Travel Partnership, representing the interest of independent travel businesses. And Paul Webster's Manager Accounts Receivable and Treasury at Carnival UK Group, representing the interest of a major supplier, global. Together, they will help us unpack why payment deserve the same level of attentions as distribution, marketing, or customer service, and how innovation in this space can reduce cost, increase trust, and future-proof the industry. So let's dive in. I invite you all to think about the way we move money across the sector as we move people. And I would like Roberto now to take the floor and lead the discussion. So, Roberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much for organizing today's session. Thank you for ECTAA for hosting us today. My name is Roberto Dare. I'm the original founder of TravelAger. And for those of you that are not familiar with TravelAger, TravelAger is a settlement and clearinghouse specifically designed for the travel industry. It is similar to a IATA BSP in concept, and it is first and foremost a data exchange platform where suppliers and buyers exchange and reconcile booking information. And then based on that data, TravelAger calculates the balances, consolidates payments amongst all of the participants, settling all of the transactions with funds that are delivered electronically together with remittance data to everybody, all the participants. And this is all done using standard data formats, standard processes, so that all of these data can be tightly integrated into the processes of every company. And this is all done with connecting into real-time connections with digital banking and a number of forms of payments that are directly integrated onto the platform. So TravelAger was specifically designed for the travel environment and the travel supply chain, even to the point where organizations like trade organizations, agency networks can actually even create their own virtual networks on top of the platforms. Like, for example, we'll hear from Advantage in a minute. And that allows additional benefits to those organizations that join the platform, but they have their own specific requirements, for example, to implement some custom workflows or consolidate financial data for their members. So practically speaking, when using a platform like Travel Ledger, suppliers don't have to chase each agency one by one, and for the buyer, manual processes go out the window, and all of the payments are unified. And there's a very clear audit trail. So working together with trade associations and groups is also a big part of what we do, because ultimately, we all live in this travel ecosystems, and the supply chain has all its own special kind of idiosyncrasies and memberships and groups. So Travel Ledger aims to bring all of these things together. And today, I'm very pleased to have a couple of companies that join us that use our platform and will kind of help me talk a little bit about their experience and how things are evolving. So I'm going to first introduce my guests, and please introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about your organization and what you do. So let's say Paul Nunn, do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks, Roberto. Good morning, everybody. Delighted to be on this call. Really good conversation. So yeah, delighted to be here. So yeah, my name's Paul Nunn. I'm COO of the Advantage Travel Partnership. We are a commercial membership organisation based in the UK, comprising of approximately 400 independent travel companies with a combined turnover of nearly 9 billion, spanning across leisure and business travel. We've also got a number of international partners, bringing the turnover to 17 billion. But in terms of Travel Ledger, focused in the UK, our members, they take advantage of commercial arrangements we have with over 300 travel supplier partners. So we provide them with commercial upside due to our scale.
Thank you. And Paul Webster.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me here today, Roberto. So I'm Paul Webster. I manage the accounts receivable and treasury team at Carnival UK. I've been at Carnival for around 15 years. My team is predominantly responsible for collection of payments for bookings, hence our involvement with Travel Ledger, and we also, of course, reconcile all of the relevant bank accounts. We've been using Travel Ledger since around May 2023, and we represent several brands across the UK and EMEA. So predominantly for us, it's P&O, Cunard, Princess, Holland America, and Seabourn. And I guess many of our guests today are familiar with the Costa and AIDA brands too.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start to look at it, at the B2B payments kind of ecosystem from a buyer perspective. So Paul, Advantage, as you said, over 400 members, a mix of business, travel, leisure. Your members do a little bit of everything. So, and also you run centralized services for some of those members as well. And as I said, you run your own kind of virtual network, virtual payment platform on top of Travel Ledger. So many angles when it comes to your involvement in this area. Tell us a little bit about your experience. What are the main challenges that are around normally B2B payments, and how do you solve them using some of the tools that we provide?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Roberto. So yeah, you're right. So we use the platform in twofold, really. We have our own version of Travel Ledger that we use for the wider network. We also manage the payments on behalf of around a couple of £100 million worth of supplier payments for about 90 of our members in our managed service scheme. Challenges before Travel Ledger. I think everybody could kind of resonate with this. so many suppliers in the travel industry. If you're an agent in particular, what you're working, depending on your size, up to a couple of hundred suppliers you're working with, supplier statements in all sorts of formats, payments, manual payments, direct debits. I mean, you name it. It's very complex, and it's very difficult to standardize and make that process as efficient as it can be. So the main challenge is clearly and quite simply before was the differing formats, the complexities of some of the statements, the frequencies of the statements, you name it. It's quite a complex world out there from a payments point of view. So yeah, they were the main challenges before the payment platforms were introduced to the industry. And I can't see, I mean, it would be a huge challenge if they were ever removed. The UK travel industry heavily is reliant on these platforms. All the big suppliers use them, and quite often it's a condition of partnering with them to use platforms such as Travel Ledger.
Yeah, and so as a result of all that standardization, obviously there is the automation, eliminating manual processes, whatever. But how does it actually impact your relationship with the suppliers? Obviously you've got audit trails and all of that. Does it? You kind of alluded to it in terms of sometimes some of the commercials, but how does it change the relationship?
Sure, yeah. I mean, before I come on to that, just going back to the efficiencies, Roberto, I think a real key one here is I keep alluding to the standardization and the standardization of the format which Travel Ledger brings, bringing together, potentially over time hundreds of suppliers into one platform makes life so much easier from an automation perspective, particularly when you're talking about bringing those transactions into a back office or a mid office system. It really does assist in the reconciliation element. From a supplier point of view, as I mentioned, more and more suppliers are seeing the key benefit of working with a standardized platform such as Travel Ledger, simply because dealing with, in our case, hundreds of independent travel agents, we've got some tour operators as well that are selling via our supply chain, is very challenging, time consuming and costly. So bringing that all together in one place not only brings the cost down, but the oversight as well. The platform enables both parties to interact via a single source. Any amendments, any changes to specific payments on bookings are tracked. So more and more it's becoming a prerequisite of the suppliers that we work with that we ask them to go onto the platform because we know the benefits it brings. I guess there's challenges for some suppliers in that they're used to working the way that they work, but I can't see many negatives. So yeah, it's really valuable.
Yeah, and also for an organization your size, as we said, you CAPS, which is your own internal payment scheme.
Yeah.
Without kind of disclosing too much, but Travel Ledger does also other functions inside your organizations before the supplier is actually paid. So obviously, I guess that really makes it easier for you to manage your centralized operation, doesn't it?
It does indeed, yeah. So one of the benefits that we provide our membership base is access to a payment platform, obviously powered by Travel Ledger, as you've alluded to. But I think the great thing is that we were able to tailor the payment flows, the transaction flows, etc., and the payment schedules in accordance with our commercial relationships with our supply chain. So although that there's a very strong standardized back element of processes that within the power Travel Ledger, you can tailor it to your own needs. And again, that's so valuable. Not only does it bring insight to our members' data to us, but it also enables us. One of the additional benefits that we provide our supply chain is that we protect pipeline funds. So we have a level of insurance that protects the pipeline funds for our suppliers, which is really valuable to them. They're not only relying on bonding, for example, that is quite prevalent in the agency community. We offer an additional layer of protection. And the reason we can do that is because we can see the value of transactions. We know the turnover. We know what we're protecting because there's insight. And I think that insight is sometimes lost in the industry. Actually knowing on almost a day-to-day basis the turnover and the value of the protection required really assists us and enables us to put forward that protection for our suppliers, which, as I say, they find really valuable.
Yeah, because within Travel Ledger, as an organization, you have one central view. You kind of have your own almost kind of control panel where you can see all of the transactions for all of your members. And as you alluded to, the fact that it can all be customized depending on the relationship, that's another important point. That there is no process that is necessarily dictated, but because commercial relationships are always fluid and they change between the parties. So when we together actually designed the system, because both Advantage and APTA worked with us when the system was developed a few years ago, we made sure obviously that we left that element of flexibility, and obviously I guess it would facilitate then obviously your relationship with the suppliers, because then you can give them the ability and the guarantee in a way that funds are going to be processed in time and they have the data. I mean, one important point in my opinion always, which again you alluded to, putting data into the back office and all that, is the data. In fact, Travel Ledger, in my opinion, is first and foremost the data platform that then also moves the money at the end of the process. But the data is the key is the key element. Without the data, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
Okay, so that kind of then takes you a little bit more, and then on the supplier side. So Paul, Webster, Carnival, you've been using our platform, as you said, for a couple of years as well. What is your experience? Tell us a little bit about how you benefit from being on the Travel Ledger platform and automating B2B payments collections.
Yeah, sure. So I think we have to go back a few years, and I am going to have to use the COVID word again. I'm trying to get away from it, but prior to the world coming to a halt, we used a system called the single payment system, which was run by APTA. It was an old system and it worked, it did its job, it was very basic and functional. So the moment that COVID hit and the cruise industry ground to a halt and there was no sailing and we had to refund pretty much everything we had on our books for a period of time, SPS could not cope. So it worked in one way, and that was for us to be paid. It did not allow us to pay out to agents. So during that period, we were focused heavily on refunding, but also we were looking at booking ahead with a view to COVID will be over in 2 weeks' time and we'll get back to normal and everything will be all right, which we know didn't happen. So we were heavily involved in refunding, which was a very manual process. You can imagine we were raising volumes of checks. We were sending out volumes of backs payments and instant transfers. So the resource required to do that, we had to draft in half of our finance function to help to support that at the time. What we had then was, we slowly were getting back to business, and where there was no functionality at the time for the single payment system, we quickly found that we were getting hundreds of receipts from travel agents daily into our bank account. It became a very manual application from the bank to the booking. This increased the volume and intensity of reconciliations. And, of course, we work with all the major cruise sellers in the UK, but there's also a very large volume of small agents. And so that just exacerbated the problem. So we had to throw a lot of resource at just our standard tasks, such as cash application, bank reconciliation, and it almost shifted that focus from sales to and collection to application. And we had a rolling, increase in our unapplied cash number. So that was kind of the position we were at running into when we picked up with you guys, the back end of 22, I guess.
Yeah.
So we can go on to the happy news now. So the process behind, even for a large corporation like us, where we have quite a lot of red tape, the process for setting up with Travel-Ledger was relatively simple. The major benefits for us were that it was kind of future-proofing, where we were able to both refund money to agents and collect money from agents. We found it simple to create the required reporting to upload to the Travel-Ledger interface. And we started off, and we started off with a kind of, I wouldn't call it small, but a modest volume and value going through Travel-Ledger. And then as agents picked up, we're kind of running at around £4 million a week, and 3,000 to 4,000 transactions per week. And I guess the benefit in that as well on the other side is that agents can quickly see not just our bookings, but bookings for all of our competitors as well. So we swiftly cut down our volume of payments coming into our bank accounts. We probably reduced that by around 75%, which had a knock-on effect. We could then reallocate our resource to working with the agents rather than just applying cash. We're in a position now where the whole process of loading the bookings onto Travel-Ledger, reconciling the file weekly, and then applying the cash to our internal systems and the bookings probably works out at, if it's an hour a week, I'd be surprised. It's a really slick process. Another major benefit for us is that where it's a live environment, we have resources who can monitor the bookings that are in the current file. And if there are issues, we can follow up on the spot with agents and remedy the issues. And yeah, I mean, of course, we've got one file we upload now. We've got one file we reconcile, and we've got one payment a week into our bank account rather than hundreds. And you can imagine the benefits that brings, and the knock-on effects of, what was a high volume of unapplied cash whilst we worked manually through with agents is now absolutely minimal.
Yeah, and I guess all of those queries, I paid you for that booking, no you didn't, or did I pay you for that booking or that other booking, that disappears. That's one of the things that, from an agency perspective, when I sometimes speak to agents, they always say, the supplier applied my money to the wrong booking and I have to, all of that. So I guess that's, you probably see the benefit on your end as well, right, that it eliminates those queries.
Absolutely. I mean, it kind of cuts out those kind of simple issues that are no one's fault. That if you're sending a manual statement out to an agent and they're sending you a manual remittance back, the complexity with our booking references have 6 digits, but it's letters and numbers, and the complexity around someone could just get the digits mixed around or, mistake a digit for something else, and then resolving that for one booking, the time that takes, where you don't have that with Travel-Ledger, right? Because it's very factual. We upload the booking references, that comes back with the correct booking references, and they all match. There's never any discrepancies.
Yeah, and obviously that information stays on the platform forever, at least, and so they can always go back and query it and see, what happened to that booking, even if the booking is presented for collection multiple times, because that's the other reality as well, that booking information changes all the time, and so the same booking might go through the system two, three different times with different values, with different kind of events and changes to the platform.
Yeah, and hugely useful. Our auditors are very happy with the data we're able to supply from the system in order to back up the numbers that we're posting.
Yeah. Okay, well, that kind of gives us obviously an idea of at a practical level, but obviously there are some other benefits, at a more of an industry level. So I would say, if we look at the kind of the bigger picture, and feel free to jump in and kind of state your opinions, but the way I see it is that the supply chain, it gets more and more complicated every day. There are more regulations. Recently even the package travel directives that stipulates that money needs to move within certain time frames. Some of the refunds need to go back to consumers within 14 days. So if we kind of step back a little bit just from the day-to-day, eliminating kind of manual processes, one of the objectives that we have as a business is to bring clarity, transparency, visibility, and cohesion throughout the supply chain. What is your opinion? What is your point of view from either buyer or sellers? That how important is that? Is that something that you think should happen more within the industry? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in there, Roberto. I mean, it's key, isn't it? I mean, the consultations that are taking place in the EU and in the UK, a lot of the focus is about the pipeline monies, as we call it. So that the funds from consumer through to end supplier, and visibility of that is key. It's the fact that it's not visible that makes everybody nervous. So quite clearly, that is very important. And I think that platforms like Travel Ledger can and should in the future play a key role in that, not only from potentially agent to supplier, but potentially broader than that, potentially from consumer as well, because clarity of funds is vitally important, not just from a supplier's perspective, but from a regulatory perspective and from an acquiring perspective as well. So when the consumer's paying, so yeah, very important. But we need adoption. We need more people to take these platforms up and they see the benefit, but also the wider benefit, like you've said, is oversight of funds and what position they're in and where they're sitting. So yeah, really important, Roberto, and it's a really good point.
Yeah, definitely. You touched there, even on consumers and all that. The whole point is by having all of the data in a single place. As I said, trade associations, even regulators, in a way, they have really the ability to know what the liability is, what is the pipeline into the supply chain. Because you remember, again, during the period of COVID, it's one of the biggest question marks was what is the liability out there? How much money is there? How much consumer funds? So. That's why we're trying through ECTAA and other relationships to really work with the trade associations, because as you say, we feel that there's a bigger play here that can be achieved in order to do this, and again, regulation changes. Obviously, UK is a specific one, but in other countries as well. Those problems of the supply chains are becoming more and more present, every day. I don't know what's your point of view, Paul. I know at Carnival you're specific, very careful when it comes to risk management and visibility and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, pipeline exposure has been a massive focus in our business for some period of time. We've had some very high profile agency failures, and it's a bit of a dark art that you have to work very closely with agents on, because one can have quite a lot of assumptions in what that pipeline exposure is. But I totally agree with Paul. It's the visibility of those numbers that invariably enable you to get to a place where you can have a sensible discussion about that exposure and how to mitigate it.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it earlier. The fact that you can actually see what you're getting, what you're going to be paid, even before the funds have actually transferred. That kind of gives you the ability to potentially jump in, solve some of the queries. So the visibility is actually even coming even earlier. You don't have to wait to see, what did the agent pay, what didn't they pay, up front before the deadline, exactly which transactions they've accepted, which ones they haven't. So that the whole relationship, we hope it is a much better relationship. And this introduces an element of accountability as well, which, not everybody's always very comfortable with, but it is very important, in my opinion, because the supply chain, especially for intermediaries, probably maybe a little bit less in the case of Carnival, but if you think about, the tour operator intermediaries, they use our platform, that are actually not just sellers, but they are buyers themselves. They need the funds on time so that they can pay their suppliers on time. It's a whole kind of chain that goes back and forth.
And Roberto, just in terms of the visibility, you're absolutely right, and that provides comfort. And comfort enables not only the regulations and to ease off a little, because there is that visibility and understanding, but it should reduce costs as well in terms of financial protection costs. So it's all about visibility, and it's all about those at risk being comfortable with the risk. And I go back to what we're able to do with our insurance policy. The only reason we can place that insurance policy is because we understand what the risk is. And that enables us to do that. Without the platform, we couldn't provide that additional policy to our supply chain. So it's because of Travel Ledger that we can do that. And that has a knock-on effect because it reduces our agent's bond with ECTAA. So the regulatory body reduces the bond requirement for the transactions through our platform because we're covering that risk. So in turn, that benefits our members and reduces the cost to trade. So the visibility is vitally important.
Yeah, and as you know, Paul, in a way, we do something similar for the non-ECTAA, non-advantage members, through our premium product, is where suppliers feel they don't have enough protection, but they want to use the platform. We can do the same thing. We can kind of offer them some sort of an element of cover, thanks to the fact that we can track the data, and then the insurers that kind of back our guarantees, then have the visibility and they know that they can rely on real data, because the data is validated by the parties. Well, yeah, there's a lot to potentially talk about, on this topic, especially when we look at the entire supply chain. But we want to leave a little bit of time as well today for some of the questions. So before we get to that, if we were to kind of wrap it up a little bit, and say, for the two of you, what are the key then messages, the key benefits that or that you see with a platform like Travel Ledger, and that you're kind of looking for as you continue to operate on the platform?
Go on, Paul.
Sorry, go on, Paul.
No. Okay. And there's we've spoke about all the benefits. They're many and varied. I guess for me, from a buyer and I won't pick up the supplier side because Paul will, but from a buyer's perspective, it is the efficiency gain. The reconciliation, the reduction in man hours required. Paul, described very well the manual process that happens when you haven't got these types of processes in place, and that applies to agents as well. Paul's receiving hundreds of payments in every day. Buyers, travel agents are paying out multiple to varied supply chains. So that efficiency one is key. Now, the efficiency is key, but the insight piece for me, from a consortia perspective, enabling us to provide additional benefits off the back of a payment platform, like the protection of pipeline funds to assist them in reducing their bonding requirements and financial protection requirements, is really key as well. So there would be my two.
I'd agree with all of that. I think the simplicity of the system as well, in how easy it is to use, helps greatly. The reconciliation is easy. The main gain for us, I mean, by using the system and being able to have ongoing conversations with our agents, we have a acceptance rate week in, week out of the high 90%. And so there's very little to chase up after each file, which again makes our life a lot easier at Carnival. And it's stable. I can't remember the system ever breaking. So,
well, let's touch wood on that.
Yeah.
But one of the other points that I is often brought up to me is the speed of settlement as well. I alluded it earlier when I was kind of introducing Travel Ledger, is the fact that we're actually connected into the banking network. All of the payments take place on real time. For example, in the UK, the majority of the settlement takes place on Fridays. That's when the majority of the money moves. Funds move instantly between the accounts of the buyer to the seller. So again, going back to some of the new legislation and the recommendations that are coming out, the fact of the speed of the money moving up and down the supply chain, from my perspective, is one of the key elements, and also the saving, because obviously being done through the banks is a lot cheaper than alternative forms of payments like cards and things like that. Although we also now offer cards and everything, but ultimately we want everyone to be on the platform and really benefiting from that speed of money flow, which ultimately reduces risk.
Roberto, may I intervene there? Thank you first for the very insightful presentation. I think when we talk with our members, when we talk with travel agent and tour operators, the payment is also certainly the key element, but even more important, that's the data which is manipulated. How far travel ledger is an opportunity for travel agent to have a better management of the data, overview of the data collected and transferred in order to reduce their risk exposure, and also to reduce the collaterals they need to bring. Is this a tool? And maybe Paul can comment on that. Is this a tool for you companies using their services to reduce these collaterals and better manipulate, with the bonds, with the guarantee funds, the trust accounts, which is also very specific in the UK?
I think from Carnival's point of view, I think it's definitely a benefit, and the quality of data is something we use as a supplementary to the standardized reporting we have in-house. It certainly brings something to the party in order to make our reconciliations easier, to give us a bit more insight into payment behavior and things like that. So obviously we're sending the data out from our systems, but what it brings back once it's been worked gives us the real value.
Yeah, I guess, and from my perspective, Eric, I mentioned about the reduction in the agent bond requirement from ABTA, as an example. So the fact that we're able to provide an additional layer of insurance to protect an element of pipeline assists the agent community in reducing their bond requirements for sure. But Paul alluded to it earlier from an audit perspective, or an auditing perspective, it's very clear, it's open, it assists businesses in other financial ways. It's not just the efficiency piece. Of course, the protection of the funds while it's sitting with the collector, the agent, for example, is an element of risk there. But I think that it was a really, an interesting point that Paul made about the volume of and the percentage of acceptance on payments through the platform, because it's so clear and transparent. You're more likely to get paid on time. So I think that the larger amount of volume you put through these platforms, the more comforting it is for those that have got exposure because of the high volume of settlement and acceptance.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, there's a question that just came in, kind of related to what we're discussing. Somebody said, is asking, do you require a bond or a guarantee to be part of the Travel Ledger network? Actually, no. Travel Ledger doesn't get involved in the commercials or the requirements of the relationship between the parties. There is no requirement to put any bonds or guarantees down. It is all down to whatever relationship buyers and sellers have. The same in terms of settlement schedules. There are most suppliers collect weekly. We have some suppliers that collect every 2 weeks. We have some suppliers that are now starting to collect multiple times a week. So Travel Ledger is neutral from that perspective, and it's all down to the relationship of the parties. And because we talked about data as well, obviously confidentiality is another very important point, that only the parties involved can actually see the data that they exchange. One company cannot see the data of another company. Then there's another question that says, who pays for the service? How much does it cost? Well, the cost of the platform is actually covered by the supplier. The supplier pays for the service to automate all of the collections. For the agents, for the buyers, there's actually no cost involved. So from that perspective, we hope that that cost is not a barrier, especially for the agents and for the buyers to come on board. Right. Let's see if there's any other questions.
Roberto, how is the procedure? So when you onboard an agent with the platform, how does it work with the suppliers? So do they need to inform, or do you need to inform all suppliers? Very basically, do you need to have both sides agreeing on the fact that they will work with this platform, or is it only one side deciding to go in one direction?
No, it's a joint decision. Whenever a new supplier joins the platform, we notify all the buyers. When a new buyer comes on board, they normally contact the suppliers. But there is an element of configuration and acceptance that normally the supplier does, which basically says, I'm going to file information to you via Travel Ledger, and so there's always that element. Furthermore, the buyer mostly has to accept the transaction coming in from the supplier. So, payments, money, although practically speaking, is similar to direct debit where the money moves automatically, but there's an element of acceptance on the agent side to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to start using the platform with you for this. And these are the transactions that I accept. These are the transactions where we disagree on the amounts, or sometimes, these are not mine. But as far as the buyer is concerned, they can self-register, come on board. They can open an account with one of our banking partners, or if they already have the Revolut account, for example, then they can immediately connect into the Revolut account. So we have multiple options when it comes to how the money moves and how the settlement takes place. But we're trying to keep it as simple as possible, obviously, for all the participants, and under control, because obviously, you want to make sure that only the money that you expect to go out or your bank account goes out. That's a very important element. Let's see if there's any other, it says, do you only settle via banks? What are the other payments methods? Well, we offer we're starting now to roll out other payment methods, specifically to pay suppliers that are not on the platform, like virtual cards and kind of standard bank payouts. But obviously the biggest benefit is when both parties are on the platform, because then is when you have a rich exchange of data. And as Eric, you were alluding to, it's not only financial data, but actually we can exchange a lot of booking information as well throughout that process. So any automation can benefit from that. I don't know, any other comments or anything else
from Paul and Paul? Is there?
Not really, no. I mean, we spoke about the onboarding. I guess from a user of the platform, I can confirm that it is a very simple process now of onboarding. So no issues there. That from the supplier's point of view, because we kind of work on both sides. It's a transaction fee, which is minimal for the benefit. I know Paul could probably speak more on that, but nothing really else from me, I don't think, Eric.
Okay, so and Paul from your side either. So, yeah, I think thank you for this, where we promised to try to stick to 45 minutes, so we almost managed to do it, which is fine. Then thank you very much for this really discussion, diving into this new form of settlement or organization of settlements in this industry. I think we need to look forward to this issue, or to look at the future in a more innovative way. And there's a lot going on in these facts, in this aspect after COVID. I mean, it has been like a wake-up call for most of the stakeholders in this industry, realizing that payments and payment policy, payment strategy is something that needs to be looked at more carefully and more ambitiously. So thank you very much for providing this insight. I invite everyone to review the recording, or to send an email, to connect with Paul Nunn, Paul Webster, or Roberto on LinkedIn if they have any questions, and also with ECTAA. Looking forward also to continue the discussion in another activity coming soon. And also to use that and make my own promotion, saying that this is one of the aspects we will touch upon during our travel distribution summit that will take place in February next year, where Roberto will be present too. So you have the possibility to see him in real life and have the most intimate and complicated questions. So it will be in February. You have the moment other occasion to talk about that. But thank you very much for this insights today, and we look forward to continue the discussion with the three of you in the coming weeks and months. I wish you a nice day, and look forward to see you